How's it going, everybody? Daner here with North Central Coins, and welcome back to another episode of the most rare and valuable coins in Canada. Today we're going to be discussing one of the most valuable nickel heirs that you can still find in your pocket change. Canadian nickels have been an integral part of the country's currency system for over a century. With its long-standing history, the design and composition of Canadian nickels have undergone a series of changes over time. If you are well versed in Canadian coins, you may have heard of the 1964 extra waterline nickel or maybe even the 1964 whistling queen, but unknown to most, there is an incredibly rare and valuable Canadian 1964 nickel heir that is worth almost as much as the previous two combined. In this video, we will delve into the history, design, and composition of the Canadian 1964 nickels. We will also explore the minting process, rarity, and value of these holy grail coins. Before I do get into it, I would really appreciate if you guys would hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you are new and you would like to see more videos just like this. Also, please hit that bell notification so you can see my new videos as they are being released. In the past, I've made several videos detailing the rare and valuable coins from Canada, the United States, Britain, Australia, New Zealand, and several other countries, and I'm going to be making plenty more in the future. So make sure to stay tuned for all of those, but what do you say we get into today's video and cover the 1964 nickel varieties. Let's get it, guys. The Canadian 5-cent coin, also known as the nickel, is worth 5 cents or 1/20th of a Canadian dollar. It was modeled after the corresponding coin in the United States and became the smallest valued coin in Canada after the penny was discontinued in the year 2012. However, due to inflation, the purchasing power of the nickel continues to decrease and it now represents less than 0.5% of the country's lowest minimum hourly wage. The Canadian 5-cent piece was first introduced in the year 1858 as a small, thin sterling silver coin. These small silver 5-cent coins are commonly referred to as fish scales. The larger base metal version made of nickel was introduced in the year 1922. Originally as 99.9% nickel, during World War II, the coins were made of tombac, then chrome, and then nickel-plated steel, and then eventually they returned to nickel at the end of the war. A chrome-plated steel version was made again from 1951 to 1954 during the Korean War. Rising nickel prices caused another switch to cupro nickel in the year 1982, but more recently Canadian nickels are minted in nickel-plated steel with a small amount of copper. Pre-1982 5-cent pieces are often sought after by collectors. From 1942 to 1962, Canadian 5-cent coins were produced in a distinctive 12-sided shape, similar to the British 3-pence coin. This was originally done to distinguish the copper-colored tombac coins from pennies, but the shape was retained for another 19 years after the coin was produced back in 99.9% nickel and then eventually in chrome-plated steel. Design changes over the years. Over the years, the design of Canadian nickels have undergone several changes. In 1937, the reverse design was changed to feature a beaver, which has remained a popular design to this day. In 1953, the obverse design was changed to showcase the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. Since the World War II victory nickels, there have been several commemorative Canadian nickels released, but still no colored Canadian nickels have been released for circulation, but I am personally holding out some hope that they may produce a colored Canadian nickel before it ceases production or circulation, which may be in the near future. The obverse design of the 1964 Canadian nickel features the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II by Mary Gillick. This design was first introduced in 1953 and remained until the year 1965. The portrait depicts a youthful Queen Elizabeth wearing a tiara and a pearl necklace. The reverse design of the 1964 Canadian nickel features a beaver, which has been a symbol of Canada since colonial times. The beaver is shown in a tranquil setting with a branch in its mouth while standing on a rock in a pond. I kind of feel like that could almost be a song, like there's a bump on a log or something like that. In the year 1964, the reverse die had a significant crack above the water lines on the left side of the beaver. This crack appears like an additional waterline, creating what is known as the extra waterline variety for the 1964 nickel. There is another error for the 1964 nickel. It is known as the whistling queen. To identify it, you need to look beside the queen's mouth on the obverse of the coin for a die clash that would make it appear like she is whistling. Now, there is actually a third variety that you can look for the Canadian 1964 nickels. It is not nearly as well known as the others, but it is definitely a lot more valuable, and that is the 1964 nickel in coin alignment. Canadian coins are usually meant to be struck in metal alignment, meaning when you flip the coin around, the orientation of the obverse and reverse will both be facing in the same direction. A good example of coin alignment would be American currency. Their coins are oriented so that the obverse and reverse are 180 degrees flipped from each other. This can also be known as a rotated die error. There are a few well-known Canadian dates that can contain this error. 1967 is a very well-known date. The 1967 Canadian rabbit nickels can be worth huge money if you find one with a rotated die, but the 1964 is definitely no exception. If you find one of these with a rotated die, it can be worth some huge money. Now, some of the specifications of the 1964 nickel: it has a diameter of 21.21 millimeters. It is composed of 99.99% nickel, and it has a weight of 4.54 grams. The 1964 nickel has an overall mintage of 78,075,068, and it portrays a portrait of a youthful Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse of the coin. So what do you say we get into the values for some of these incredibly rare 1964 nickel varieties? I'm actually going to start with the 1964 with no heirs or varieties, just the plain 1964 Canadian nickel, just to basically give it a base in terms of value. Now, the 1964 Canadian nickel is not worth much at all if it's in a low MS state. It's actually only worth $1 if it's from an MS60 to an MS61, but it can actually be worth all the way up to $376 if you get one in an MS67, which is an incredibly high grade designation. So chances are, rolls that are floating around these days probably don't contain nickels that will be graded that high. So as we go along here, you will find that these nickels will increase in value. Next up is the 1964 Whistling Queen. So as I mentioned earlier, to identify this, you basically want to look to the right-hand side of Queen Elizabeth's mouth, and if you see a small die clash that looks like the Queen may be spitting or whistling, then you might have one incredibly rare nickel. In terms of value, just to give you an idea, when the 1964 is worth around $1 for an MS60, the 1964 Whistling Queen is worth about $10 for an MS60. Now, on the high end, it can be worth around $270 for an MS65, but if it were to grade any higher, I'm sure you would see a significant price jump. It could easily be $500, $600 for an MS66 example, and that is the 1964 Whistling Queen. The 1964 Extra Waterline nickel is probably one of the most well-known Canadian nickel heirs of the last 50 years. The rarity and scarcity of these things is not to be understated. I have hunted thousands and thousands of dollars in Canadian nickels, and it is still one I have yet to find. It is definitely on my bucket list, along with the 1991 quarter. Those are two coins that are super elusive for me, but hopefully one day will be my day. But in terms of value, the 1964 Extra Waterline can even be pretty valuable on the low end. It can be worth around $10 to $20, even in a low grade state if it's all beat up and worn. People want this thing for their collection or to fill their books out. It can be worth around $45 to $50 in the low MS range, and all the way up to $1,960 for an MS65 example. Now, to identify the Extra Waterline, you want to look to the left of the beaver, and you will look for a die crack that is running along the KG initials that will make it appear as if there is an extra waterline. Now, you don't actually even really need a microscope to identify this one. You can see it with the naked eye, or you could even just zoom in with your phone. So this is definitely one of the best varieties to look for. I have known other coin roll hunters that have found them. I know they are out there, but they are extremely rare, and they are pretty much a holy grail of the modern Canadian nickels. So the last one we are going to discuss today is the 1964 in coin alignment. As I mentioned, Canadian coins are usually made in metal alignment, meaning that the obverse and reverse are facing in the same orientation, but when a coin is in coin alignment, it means they are rotated 180 degrees. It can also be known as a rotated die. In terms of value, there aren't any super high MS examples of this, but it can be worth around $2,510 for a low grade MS example. So MS60, MS61, if you were to find one of these and it scored MS65, you could easily be talking a $10,000 nickel. So this is by far the rarest and most valuable of the Canadian 1964 nickel heirs and varieties to look for, and that is the 1964 in coin alignment. I would really like to thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please smash that thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and also hit that bell notification so you can see my new videos as they are being released. I would like to announce that I have partnered with Lighthouse Canada. They are one of the largest and most reputable coin supply companies in North America. They have a website with a massive selection and inventory that can cover just about everything in your coin collecting needs. Whether you need coin flips, coin albums, microscopes, they even have a solution to clean your coins and reveal the dates on some of your older pieces as well. So if you would like to shop one of the best selections of Canadian coin gear available, then go to lighthousecanada.ca, and you can also enter the promo code DANE20 at checkout for 20% off of your order. I've also partnered with Charlton Press. They produce Canadian coin catalogs and they are of the highest quality. I would definitely recommend them if you want to find out the values and find out information on your Canadian coins. So if you would like to purchase any of their coin catalogs, then go to charltonpress.com, and you can also enter the promo code DANE20 for 20% off of your order. So that's lighthousecanada.ca, charltonpress.com, enter DANE20 for 20% off of your order. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching, but until the next one, everybody, peace out and have a good one, y'all.